Hello, I'm Jay Ingram.
And I'm Zai Tong. As you can see, we have a full tilt show for you tonight. And as usual, we have some pretty bizarre and strange stories as well.
That's right, like the world's largest wine glass, like a man who prides himself on escaping from buried coffins, all of that, a lot more, but first. It's alive! Halloween is over, but it seems like the dead can still rise from the grave. Daily Planet will dig up the dirt on this next. It is the return of the dead. Only this time, this is not a movie. Dean Gunderson spent 42 hours buried in a steel coffin, 6 feet underground, no food, no water, no washroom, for what he is calling his most dangerous escape yet.
Dean Gunderson, escape artist, joins me now from Winnipeg. So, Dean, how does it feel to be out?
Well, obviously, I'm very, very happy to be above ground, to smell the fresh air, to see the sunshine again. It was pretty dark and claustrophobic and cramped in there. So, like I said, it was great. To give my wife a hug and stuff when I got out, it was a good day.
Now, walk us through this. How did you go about doing this? Did you have a medical team advising you, or?
Well, we actually used a lot of different people and a lot of different advice because there was so many different calculations and things that we had to be aware of. The weight of the dirt, what size the coffin was, that the coffin could withstand all the weight, how much air I was going to need. Again, going without food and water for the entire time. There was a lot of different elements and things that we had to prepare. And of course, my health. I lost almost 10% of my body mass over this ordeal.
Now, was that because of dehydration, or?
Yeah, well, again, I had to start, for the last few weeks, I had to start lowering my calorie intake because I couldn't just stop eating right away. So I had to start lowering that down. And again, I don't smoke or I don't drink alcohol or drugs or anything, but I do drink a lot of caffeine. I love my coffee in the morning. I love my soft drinks. So I had to get that out of my system as well. So I didn't go with any caffeine withdrawal, but I had to get all the other food out of my body. So because when I was locked in the coffin, again, one thing we couldn't put, there was no washroom facilities. So obviously I didn't want to be stuck in there for a few days and having to go to the bathroom.
Now, obviously, for most people, this is, the most claustrophobic one can imagine being. So what was going on in your head as you were in there?
Yeah, it was. It was totally claustrophobic. And, it's dark. It was cold steel. It was damp. Again, Winnipeg is built on the old lake bottom from the last glacier age. So it's all clay. So when they dug out the hole on Friday to bury me, it filled full of water. So we had to put in a whole sub pump system to pump the water out of the grave. So the entire time I was down there, they were pumping water out to make sure that my coffin didn't fill full of water. So it was quite, kind of, I shouldn't say terrifying, because I had to try and keep my mind clear. And the psychological aspects of being locked in such a confined space, like I said, in that darkness and the isolation, without, going crazy or panicking or having fear overcome me.
Now, what about oxygen? You were able to breathe down there.
Yes, obviously because of the space of the coffin, I would have ran out of air within a short period of time. So we devised a air ventilation system to bring air in, fresh air, and of course to get the old air out so I didn't succumb to carbon dioxide or anything like that. So I did have air going in, but again, it was kind of creepy and unnerving a little bit, the air coming in. But what we did find too was that with this air ventilation system, people could come stand on my grave and talk to me. I couldn't see them or they couldn't see me, but they could talk to me through this tunnel. And so they would ask me questions and interact with me. So it was kind of odd that I was going to, and I noticed one of the interesting things when I was in this isolation, again, because I couldn't see or anything like that, my sense of smell increased. And if somebody came up with a cup of coffee, I could smell it.
The coffee again. Let me ask you, what would happen in a real-world scenario? Because obviously you have air to breathe here and oxygen too, but what would actually happen to someone? I imagine they'd asphyxiate.
Well, obviously, yeah, if they were put in the coffin and buried alive with no air, yeah, once that air in the coffin within a few hours and stuff would be used up and be replenished with the CO2 from your lungs, you would just go to sleep. It would be a terrifying, I think, death, knowing that you were trapped in there and nobody could see you or hear you, and you're 6 feet under, like 3 tons of dirt and mud. I think it'd be a terrible way to go. And if you search on the internet, you'll find that this is stuff that's actually happened over the last, few hundred years. Like, I mean, digging up these old graves and finding people buried alive and claw marks in the coffins. And, I can only imagine, like, what it would be like because I've gone through it. I know one thing for sure. When my time in this earth is done, I'm not getting buried. I'm getting cremated. I want to be above ground. I want my ashes to go in a flower bed, a tree planted on me. I want to be rejuvenated and be a tree in the next life.
That's wonderful. I'm glad you learned a great big lesson from doing this stunt. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dean.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here and great to talk to you. And like I said, man, appreciate the day. It's always better to be on the top side of the green than the bottom.
Dean Gunderson is an escape artist. He joined me today from Winnipeg, Manitoba.
So you know what I was wondering? He wasn't like buried in the classical way that people actually were buried and died, right? He had air and so on. But I wonder if he had the same sort of feelings of what that might be like. We had a guy on the show once, Gordon Giesbrecht, who drove a snowmobile into the water deliberately to demonstrate how if you're not wearing the right suit, you'll take on so much water and drown.
Right.
And just before they, there was a crew there. Just before they picked him up, he tried to imagine, okay, I'm all alone. What would this feel like? And he had a real sense of how horrible it would be to die that way. And I'm just wondering if this was the case too.
I imagine it wouldn't have been exactly the same for him because he was able to communicate with people at the surface, because he had oxygen, because he had, didn't have to go to the bathroom while he was in that coffin, But as you know,
if you're in an MRI and you start to, there's always people like within 20 feet of you can still panic though.
Absolutely.
I'm impressed. Breaking the